Welcome to the Executive Coaching Podcast, where executive coach Alicia Cowan will discuss leadership topics and coaching solutions to tackle the most difficult problems that keep you from leading your team to success.
Hey there, senior leaders. To all my executives, welcome back to the Executive Coaching Podcast. We are headed into episode 71 today. I'm Alicia Cowan, your executive coach, and I am happy to be here with you today. As I'm recording this, it's mid-July, and I'm trying to get ahead as I'm headed out on vacation today, actually. We're going to drive up to Orlando and then fly out to Jamaica for a week, and I'm so excited to meet up with some friends we haven't seen in a while. And so we're headed with another family to spend a week in a house in Jamaica with them. And we're so pumped and excited. So part of getting everything wrapped up for this vacation is recording this podcast. And I'm very happy to be here with you as well today, because I've been thinking a lot about you all. And I've been thinking a lot about the series that we've been talking about, executive presence. And to do a quick recap, it's been an unofficial series, if you will, but in episode 68, we talked about executive presence and making the intangible more tangible. So in that episode, we dive deep into, sometimes you get the feedback about needing to have stronger executive presence, but a lot of times we don't exactly know what that means. So we broke it down a little further there. And in this episode, in the next episode, in episode 69, we dove into the mindset of executive presence. And we talked a lot about how you can't change your actions if you don't first change your thoughts and your mindset. And today, what we're going to dive into is continuing that same thread and through line of emotional side of executive presence, and really specifically why your ability to manage your emotions is your presence. And one big mistake that I see is that thinking executive presence is more about the outward production and outward actions, like your posture, your polish, the words, and how clever you are. And that's a part of the result of executive presence. But presence is not, in its sense, summed up by the actions. It's truly driven by the energy that you bring. And that energy is truly fueled by the back end, right? If you're thinking about an operating system, it's fueled by your emotional state, which is the operating system for those actions. And so I tried to dive into that a little bit, like that whole essence of fake it till you make it. You can fake it for a little bit, but over time it's not sustainable. And that's where I do see people get burnout at times. And so this episode, we're going to dive deeper in to help you as executive senior leaders understand that the emotional regulation piece is really a non-negotiable for bringing executive presence to the table. And the taking the ownership of the emotional state, and we're going to call that AKA emotional adulthood today, is foundational to how you are perceived and how you lead. And again, a lot of you listening to this podcast, which I consider my extended group of clients, you've risen to this point because you absolutely have harnessed emotional adulthood at some point in your life. So there's going to be that familiarity, and maybe you have mastered it and you are professional level executive emotional adulthood at its highest. So maybe this is less of what you may need, but maybe somebody else that you are leading may need. And that's really how this came up for me. Was I have been coaching a leader, and I had someone within their sphere that emotionally reacted in a way that was not from a place of emotional adulthood. And so that's what really brought up the inspiration for this podcast. So while this may not necessarily pertain exactly to you, it may help you in thinking about supporting someone or coaching somebody out there that may need the support too. So All right, so let's dive in. So, episode 71, let's go. Emotional adulthood. Let's start out by defining it. So, I want to shout out my coach, Brooke Castillo, really helped me wrap my brain around this concept of emotional adulthood. And it can be really summed up by saying, I am responsible how I feel all of the time. The contrast with this is probably the best way to see it is to understand the opposite of and contrast it with emotional childhood. It could look like this. It's where you're blaming everybody else for how you feel. Maybe you're blaming how you feel on your boss. Maybe it's your broader team. Maybe it's an individual team member. Maybe it's a situation that happened during a meeting. Maybe it's the broader economy and the market. It's basically when you are holding everybody else responsible or the world or the circumstances responsible for how you feel. Here's why this matters for executive presence. When you translate this into the workplace, if you walk into a room frustrated, defensive, feeling nervous, and you don't process that or regulate that, the entire room feels it. And that is your executive presence. So here's an example of this. I've seen leaders who will walk into a room or a virtual setting into a meeting, and they bring this energy of you can just feel it, of like the thought is like, this is a waste of time and I don't need to be here. Or you walk in and you can feel the energy of like, I'm exhausted and I'm so tired and I'm so burnt out. Or the energy of like, I'm annoyed that this isn't going faster. Like, speed up. I got it. Let's move on. And the whole room can absorb and see that energy. And it completely will impact the leader's influence, whether they speak it or not. And I think we've all been in those situations. Like you can really feel somebody's energy, whether the words are said or not, and you can absolutely see how it feels. Again, going back to the situation that inspired this podcast, there was a sense of urgency, of defensiveness that this leader brought, that um, entitlement, a sense of like needing answers and needing answers to get them from anybody and everybody, when truly there wasn't self-reflection happening. And so I think understanding that even if you don't speak out the words, people can understand from the energy in your actions how you're feeling, and they can absorb that energy. So I think that's really important to note. Now, let's talk about the cost of this. The cost of emotional childhood in leadership is it erodes presence. When, as a leader, you are emotionally reacting to the circumstances that are very neutral in the world, and you're reacting rather than responding in a way from a way that feels good and in line with your values, you may be matching the emotional presence in the room, or you may be reacting in a defensive way, or just reacting in a way that you're blaming the circumstance rather than owning how your reaction is it taking place. It will erode your executive presence overall and your credibility with the team. And these leaders, they'll lose credibility when they exhibit and they take actions from that reactivity place. So if you see somebody completely like snap in a meeting and they'll lash out and just be nasty or even abrupt or even rude in a meeting, or maybe in the situation that I saw this week, somebody that gets visibly defensive, where they put up their guard and they start to like defend their position and they start blaming anyone and everyone that may be in their line of sight, rather than taking some ownership and self-reflecting. Another way we see this creep up is this reactivity of maybe somebody withdrawing. They may shut down, they may disengage, they may avoid. And so I want to ask you, maybe you can think about an example that you've seen in the real world where you Perhaps have seen a VP who or executive that just couldn't manage their frustration when they're put into a challenging situation. So reflect on that. What was the situation? Why, maybe what were they thinking? It's hard to get into someone's head, know exactly what their thought processes was, but to understand maybe why they were reacting in the way that they were rather than owning their emotional adulthood there. And I want you to think of those examples and think like that is not executive presence. That's actually a power leak. It's basically, and what I mean by that is it's diminishing your power when you give ownership to somebody else over your emotions and how you react. Okay. It's leaking power out of you as a leader and giving it and putting it in the hands of somebody else. All right. So here is some more tangible ways. If you ever either sense that you are an emotional child, or maybe you sense it and you visibly see it in somebody else, these are some signs that perhaps somebody is slipping into this state, into emotional childhood. The first one could be like somebody that feels resentful a lot of the time. Somebody that is, again, resentful and holding grudges and holding blame because they were expecting somebody or someone else or something else, some situation to go a different way than it did. And they feel the victim of that. They feel resentful and burdened by the fact that things are not going the way that they should. Another situation that could be if you see a leader that is blaming their feelings on their team's performance or lack of performance, and they're not taking accountability for their ownership over this and ownership over the situation. I see this a lot in terms of performance. A lot of times people will blame it on any other factor than themselves. And again, there, of course, can be factors that impact someone's performance. But when you're in the business setting, ultimately, it's up to you how do you react to it, right? And so I think this situation can come up a lot when you're addressing KPIs, performance reviews, getting feedback, right? And you can see someone and how they react to it will tell you very clearly whether or not they're in emotional adulthood or emotional childhood. All right. And the last question that I have for you to maybe audit if you're in emotional childhood or visibly seeing it in someone else is to see if the leader is waiting for somebody else to fix how they're feeling. I'll give you an example. I had a situation where a leader was expecting somebody else to come and fix the relationship that they felt had broken down. They were waiting on the other person to all of a sudden have the awareness, the tools, the words, the wherewithal to know how this person was feeling and that they felt slighted, and they were waiting for them to come fix it. They did not want to go meet that other person where they were at and try to work on that relationship. They 100% were sitting passively, expecting the other person in the relationship to fix how they were feeling. Again, these are just a couple of quick snippets of tools or maybe questions you could ask to see if somebody is sitting in that emotional childhood. There's lots of different ways to do it, but I wanted to give you some tangible, tactical ways to potentially do this. And if the answer is yes, you see this, again, whether in yourself or somebody else, then emotional childhood is the one running the show. And that is the power leak that I mentioned. It is absolutely giving your power away to somebody else rather than claiming it, and you as the leader running the show. All right. Now let's talk about a little bit of how do we work through this? What do we do? So here's a process that you can potentially adapt to help someone or yourself move into emotional childhood if you slip into this. It's perfectly normal, I'm going to say this, to slip into this at times. Like we all have been there. When we allow our emotions to take over, you can feel it, and it's okay to slip into these feelings. It doesn't mean anything's going wrong. It is how you react to it. It's building that muscle of reaction and the strength of how you want to react, versus putting yourself in a position that you feel like something's going wrong with you or that you are in the wrong. It's very human and very normal to feel some of these feelings. This process is more about what do you do with that feeling and how to react to it. So really a couple of simple steps. The first one is to just notice and name the feeling that you're experiencing before you go into those key meetings or you go into those conversations. So, for example, if you're feeling frustrated or angry or sad or disappointed or defensive, it's okay to feel it. I want you to go into it. The next step, identify that thought that's fueling that feeling. So, if you feel that feeling, you notice it, then be like, okay, what is fueling that? So maybe it's, again, maybe you find yourself blaming somebody else for a situation. Maybe you're frustrated with how the team is performing. Maybe you are um, upset about how something turned out. Notice just what is a thought fueling the feeling. And then the third step here is to ask, is this thought useful for the energy that I want to bring? Now, notice I didn't say like you have to like abolish this thought or you have to like not think this thought, or you just have to like ask yourself, is it useful for what I want to bring into this meeting or to this conversation? Whatever your answer is, it's fine. Just notice if it's useful or not for you. And then if it's not useful, you can go forward by choosing a more intentional thought that will help you generate the feeling and the emotion that you want to bring to that meeting or to that conversation. So let me give you an example. So perhaps you're feeling frustrated. Again, step one, you just notice it. Like, I'm feeling a little frustrated today. Okay. All right. Why? What am I thinking right now? What's the thought audit here? The thought could be something like, they are wasting my time. Maybe it's a meeting you're going to or something, conversation happening. This is a waste of my time, right? And then you get to ask yourself, is that a useful thought to have? Is that true? Do I want to be thinking that thought? Again, optional for you to choose. And then you decide if you want to switch, you could, pick another helpful thought for you. Hey, this is my opportunity to influence, or I have an opportunity to lead in this moment. And see how that feels. If the feeling is helpful, if it results in a feeling maybe of authority, or maybe it calms you down, or you're feeling more positive, right? If that feeling feels, it resonates with you and it resonates with how you want to show up in that meeting, great. Grab that thought and use it as fuel. If it doesn't feel right, pick another one. This is totally experimental and something that you have the power to change. So see what you bring. And then the bonus tip I want to give you here is this is why really elite leaders, senior executives have coaches. The reason is because you want to help yourself and you sometimes need somebody outside of you and to be objective and to help you see some of those hidden trigger thoughts that are driving your emotions. A lot of times it's hard when you've got everything that's swirling around in your brain. It's really hard to see it and to be objective and to work through it. And again, I'm not saying you can't do it on your own. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer. And a lot of times elite executive leaders are looking for speed. They're looking for trying to elevate and move through to success quicker than trying to work through it on their own. So this is why a lot of times leaders use people as a sounding board, as a coach to help them through it. So that is a tip I want to give you and an option that you have at your fingertips here. All right. So here's the quick emotional audit tool. Here's your tangible practice. I'm just going to give you this prompt for any next big meeting that you might have. Number one, what emotion am I currently feeling? Two, what emotion do I want to lead with? And three, what thought can I choose to generate that emotion that I want to bring? All right. 3-step process, super simple, easy in theory, but sometimes challenging when you put it into practice. So what I want you to do this week is observe. When you go into meetings or situations, just catch it. How often are you blaming for others about how you feel? If you're, auditing yourself and you are absolutely owning it and you are not doing this, gold star. If you find yourself doing it, slipping into it, own it. You can shift it. And absolutely, if you see it in others that are on your team, I think it's worth noting and to think about considering how you want to coach it. You also have this ability to give this feedback and deliver it to others. If you see people, again, slipping into emotionally reacting and then blaming it on other people. So I want to encourage you. You can document this really quickly, throw it on a post-it or something more formal. You could put it in your phone in a note. You could document in a journal. It just helps you as you start to build emotional awareness and emotional adulthood. It helps you to be able to catch those moments quickly and to have that observation and awareness. It just helps you build the muscle because you recognize it in yourself and you help to build that better pattern over time. All right, so let's recap, friends. We had a great conversation today. I want you to remember executive presence is so much, but it is 100% part of the mindset and emotional management first. So you have to get your brain right. You have to get your thoughts cleaned out, and you have to get those thoughts that are connected to the feelings in line with how you want to show up as an executive. That has to be in place because everything else comes second. How you act and the results that you drive as a leader with executive presence are all going to stem from how you're thinking and how you are feeling. So if you want help building this muscle, this is exactly the work that I do. I coach my executive clients, and they work through the thoughts that they're having, the feelings that they're having, so that they know exactly how they want to show up and be the leaders that they want to be, to have their teams be led to a place of success. So if that is you and you want to talk further about this, you can book a free call with me. We can work together and talk through to see if this is a good fit for you. And he'll help you build this unshakable executive presence. All right. Well, I thank you for listening. I will see you next time. And until then, if you want to get a hold of me, go to my website, AliciaCowanCoaching.com. It's ELISIAKEOWN coaching.com. And I would love to hear from you. And until then, have a great couple weeks. I will see you, and we will, again, talk next time. Thanks, friends.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Executive Coaching Podcast with Alicia Cowan. If you're ready to have an executive coach who's ready to help you lead your team to success, then book an introductory call at AliciaCowanCoaching.com/call.